if the Nog is going to have as much staying power as I necessarily hope for. But we're going to give it a shot. We're going to see if we can make it work. Chiney Golic Jr. here on ESPN Radio. Mike Golic Jr., Chiney Golic. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests join us on the show. Pennzoil, Performance Line. And we got a lot of great ones coming up today. Obviously, a lot to look ahead towards the NBA draft coming right from here in Bristol, Connecticut. Looking forward to having the crew around here for that. Got to be exciting, Chiney, to see people going and getting ready for something like the number one overall pick. For anyone not familiar, Chiney, a former number one overall pick in the WNBA draft. I think draft nights and senior nights are always kind of emotional for me because you're seeing people's lives literally change before their eyes, and I know it had to be a pretty special experience to live.
On this show, you always say flex unnecessarily, but here's a flex, okay? And I'm just going to come out and say it. I mean, I know what it's like to be drafted number one. It's a very special experience, but then I also know what it's like to have a sibling drafted virtually also as well. And so the virtual draft is going to be interesting just because a lot of people say, oh, will it feel the same when I watched my little sister enter the virtual draft this past season and she was going bonkers and she was like the marquee trade that happened on draft night, which was nuts because we were actually live streaming on ESPN when she got traded and all of us were like, whoa. So yeah, it's going to be special regardless of if you're there in person or not.
That is true, the digital draft, and you mentioned the WNBA was the first league to do that. The NFL followed suit and went with their version of that, and so now the NBA prospects going to get a lot of that. We'll talk to our ESPN NBA draft expert, Mike Schmitz, who's going to join us, get us ready for some of the big-time prospects at the top of this draft because there's a lot of differences in the way that these guys got to this point than in prior years, and I think it makes for a pretty interesting study. But, Chiney, I was sitting around last night after one of the worst Monday Night Football games we have ever had the displeasure of having to watch on our screens. The Vikings get a win, but really there were no winners in that absolute sicko mode game. But
except me.
Except for you, Chiney, because you did finally get your first fantasy win of the year. So a hearty congratulations on that one.
It's actually my second. I think I won my first game, and then it's my second. That's why I said 99 problems and winning's one, because I was stuck at one, but now your girl's at two.
There we go. We're climbing out of the cellar right now. Beating Allen Robinson in prime time is our very own Chiney Golic. And as I'm settling in after that, Chiney, basking in the glow of you and the Vikings getting a win there, the Woj bombs start. And it all starts getting going here. And the Milwaukee Bucks go out and start making the moves. Bogdanovich and Drew Holiday now both on their way to Milwaukee to try and sweeten the deal for none other than Giannis Antetokounmpo. Chiney, when you look at what started last night from Milwaukee's standpoint, is it moving the needle at all if you're Giannis Antetokounmpo sitting at home right now?
Absolutely moving the needle. Absolutely moving the needle if you're Giannis Antetokounmpo. Okay, so let me just say this. It is probably not the most sexy trade or, swap of players, but it is just exactly what the doctor ordered in the sense that the biggest thing that this team really needed was a floor general because Giannis, he's doing too much in the best ways possible. He brings the ball up. He's the one trying to play in the post. He's trying to expand his game and hit the three. Everyone knew that they needed a floor general, a floor leader, so much so that the conversation centered upon maybe Chris Paul after he upped his value, and now we see Chris Paul in Phoenix. But I think what they got with Drew Holiday is just that a younger version of a top player, someone that's certified, someone that's just a great human being, if you follow the stories about him and his family. And then most importantly, someone that can deliver. Like, he's the reason why teams win. He's one of those players that can be an X factor on both ends, offensively and defensively. This is a sneaky good get for the Milwaukee Bucks, in addition to getting a sniper too in Bogdan Bogdanovich.
Yeah, I think all of these things help, Chiney, and I think they're all going to be important. And if I'm Giannis, there's still no way I'm signing that Supermax deal at this point in time, right? Like, to me, there's just no reason, Chiney, because you look at it now, yes, he could lock himself in. Yes, we know the financials, which we'll get to someone turning down big money in just about 5-10 minutes here. But I still look at this and say, all of this is great. And relative to what you could do this offseason, probably the only moves that were out there to make. But give Milwaukee credit for making them. That being said, I still see no reason for Giannis why he shouldn't use this as a trial run to see how this group looks, how it develops and goes, because Milwaukee was going to go out and get them regardless of whether or not they had a guarantee Giannis was going to sign on the dotted line.
That is a fact. They were in the all backs against the wall, whatever it takes. And so a lot of people are like, holy smokes, Drew Holiday, you have a package that includes Bledsoe and George Hill and then 3 first-round picks. So a lot of people are like, whoa, that is a lot. But at the end of the day, you have to do whatever it takes because you don't get Giannis's in, out of the periphery markets, smaller markets without, that's like once in a generation. Like, this is the guy. This is the guy that you need now. Do whatever it takes, and it's clear that they're listening to him. Getting a floor general, getting someone that will force the ball out of Giannis's hands so that maybe he plays that more stretch four instead of point forward or whatever the case is, especially that's limiting his game. So I think Milwaukee did a great job listening to their star, but more importantly, finding a star that could fit in this lineup. Because if they're a big three, it's funny. We talk about big threes and we have like LeBron and, Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, but like this is a very, very different big three, an effective big three, but a very different one. It's like the low-key, good vibes big three. And so maybe this will put them over the edge, but I do think they got necessary talent that makes them better.
Chiney Golic Jr. here on ESPN Radio, reminding you, be part of Chiney Golic Jr. Nation on the Dr. Pepper Twitter feed. ESPN Nation is presented by Dr. Pepper. College football season's heating up. So is your favorite Dr. Pepper-loving college football town, Fansville. Head to a store near you to treat your inner college football fan to an ice-cold 20-ounce Dr. Pepper today. And Chiney, you mentioned big three, low-key vibes on this one, and a good group. Well, stop it good, because there's one of our ESPN NBA analysts in Kendrick Perkins who believes that if the season started right now, they could be the best.
Gasoline.
Maybe.
All I know is right now, the Bucks are winning. They are winning. Them going to get Drew Holiday was a huge win for them. You talk about a guy that's a two-way player, one of the best in the game today, who could get you 20 to 25 points on one end and lock you up on the other end. And you talk about Bogdanovich, this guy is a walking bucket. I'm talking about he could score anywhere in the country. You could drop him off at the LA Fitness. You could drop him off at the Wellness Center, the YMCA. He's going to get buckets. And I'm looking at this starting five. Now Chris Middleton is going to be the third option, which I believe he is anyway. Drew Holiday is going to be the second option. Now you have Drew Holiday who could close out games for you, with Giannis being the focal point. And you have Brook Lopez anchoring this defense with a Bogdanovich. Right now, today, if the season started today, this is the best starting five in the NBA, and there's no debate.
Chiney, you hear that there? No debate from Kendrick Perkins, the best starting five right now. And again, all of that can be true if you want to believe that, and it's still not a reason for Giannis to sign today. And treat this any different. If you're Milwaukee, you can sleep soundly now, because at least in this year, we can question some moves they made last offseason, but at least this year, you can say relative to the market space, we did everything in our power to try and keep this guy, as we stare at the edge of oblivion right now for a small market team.
If we're talking about today, as my big bro Perk would say, maybe, but still, it's not necessarily just starting fives that win. It's having depth too. And so I think what the Bucks did is they addressed a lot of their needs. This is a very underrated, great, talented big three led by Giannis, the two-time MVP. But right now, I'm just like, I don't know, because guess what? It can look a lot different in about a week. Like, talking about cap situation, no cap situation, especially in the East. So I think this was a good move by Milwaukee. They're going all in, rightfully so. You have to do that when you have a talent like Giannis Antetokounmpo. But I'm not ready to christen them as their future champions, just because it's the first year of stars playing together. And more importantly, even with their star, they haven't proven that they've been able to win. The Bucks as an organization going late. So they still have a lot to say about it. But hey, it was a good move. It was a good move.
It was what they had in front of them. But you're right. It's probably too soon to say, because coming up next, we got to stick in the East. Some is great, but more is better. We know the domino that's still waiting to fall right now. How close are we getting? And someone calling on ESPN Radio, Mike Golic Jr., Chiney Golic. But I got to ask something first, because it's been a big day for everyone. Twitter did the update thing again.
Fleet.
I don't understand the name fully, but Chiney just mentioned it. For anyone that hasn't had the update forced upon them yet, Twitter now has fleets, which is basically them stealing Instagram stories. That's
IG stories, correct.
That's all it really is in this instance. So, Chiney, have you fleeted yet?
I have not hit that fleet yet. No, but I can do it. I'll do it in the break.
I'm very curious of how we word that, because like Chiney just said, are you hitting that fleet? I don't know what you're doing with said fleet in here. Cliff, any ideas?
You probably on fleet.
I'm always on fleet. 24/7 on fleek. I was born on fleek.
It's a fleeting moment, guys.
Oh,
Oh
my
gosh,
God.
here we go. Comes dictionary.
Dictionary Devin over here. I don't know why that nickname really stuck, but it brings up a bigger question in a lot of this
Sorry,
for me.
I really love that nickname.
Dictionary Devin?
Dictionary Devin.
I mean, he's going to be Reddit Devin around these parts. Devin, our producer extraordinaire, miner of Reddits, taker of TikToks. All these things lead me to something, though, and it's a question I want to ask before we get into what's going on with the Nets, because I've said all I want in this NBA free agency. I will not be satisfied by Drew Holiday's, Trevor Ariza's, or anything else. I want Harden to the Nets. I need it. It seemed like it's spelled out here, and I need it. But I have to ask everyone an important question first. When it comes to social media, and shout out to Kim Adams on Twitter for this one, it's a basketball analyst over at on Fox. Social media platforms can make all the changes they want, but nothing will ever be more impactful than the MySpace top 8. Is that true? Is the top 8 the most impactful social media change that we've had in modern times?
I was not allowed on MySpace.
Oh, interesting. Barred from MySpace. Cliff, Devin, you guys got any experience here? Because the top 8 always felt like something. It was a unique crown jewel, and if you didn't uphold the right friends in that spot, there was hell to pay.
So the top 8 was very sacred and all that, but then it got watered down by the top 12, 24, and then it went to like 64, and then I was just like, all right, I'm out. I'm done with this.
I'll posit Snapchat groups.
Yeah.
It took way too long to get group. Like, you'd have to individually pick your friends to send your snaps to. Once they got groups, it's a game changer.
DMs.
Ooh.
Oh, that's like close friends on IG.
Oh,
Instagram.
That's an interesting one. DMs is certainly an innovation for a lot of reasons.
It can't be anything else than DMs. There's no
DMs.
way you can top DMs.
DMs for sure. That lives have changed.
That is true. That is true. We have had bonds formed, babies made, flyouts had, all thanks to the DM. So hit us up at Chiney, at Mike Golic Jr. on the Dr. Pepper Twitter feed. The most impactful social media innovation of our time. Is it the MySpace top 8 or is it something
DMs.
else? At Chiney, at Mike Golic Jr. The DMs right now, the early leader on this one. But Chiney, I want to play the sound from our own Zach Lowe, our great ESPN NBA writer. He was on earlier today with Mike Greenberg, and he said, James Harden leaving your Houston Rockets, it's already done.
James Harden has reportedly made his wishes clear. He wants to be in Brooklyn. He doesn't want to be in Houston anymore, according to Woj, and also from what I've heard. And the Rockets so far are expressing pretty much no interest in really having any serious talks with Brooklyn or anybody else about James Harden. And, eventually – this has the potential to linger and linger and linger, and one side's going to cave or one side's not going to cave, or they're just going to sort of hold their noses and play together for a little while longer. But to me, the writing is on the wall, and once the writing starts to be written up on that wall, it's hard to erase it, and the end game seems like he's going to be elsewhere. But when, we don't know.
It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless and Chiney. Very big Avengers vibes. We're in the end game now. Are you basically just bracing for impact at this point, James Harden leaving the Houston Rockets?
Yeah, I am at that point. We've reached the end of the road. Okay.
Chiney, I'm gonna stop you right there. That is the best on-air singing you have ever done on this show, bar none. Clip that and send that. You know what? Send that to Sarah Spain and let her know.
Take that, sis.
Oof.
Okay.
You can go,
All
keep
right.
going
and
on.
By the way, take that loss in fantasy that I gave you as well while you're there. Okay. Yes, we've reached the end of the road when it comes to. Thank you. Wow, I feel really great right now. We've reached the end of the road when it comes to James Harden because I know what that's like. I myself politely asked for a trade. And when you have that on your heart and mind, and when you see dollar bills like $50 million on the table that are being declined or saying we don't want this, granted that he already has about 2 or 3 years left on this current deal. That was an extension for 2 or 3 more. I think it's sort of written. I would hope that maybe this is feelings and intentions and the actual basketball operations of getting something done like this, the execution of this might force him to maybe reconsider, because this man we're talking about walking buckets, is a walking bucket. He is a game changer. So if he's in Brooklyn, it makes sense. Why? Well, one, he's already played with KD. Everyone sort of forgets that this was the 6th man of the year before he became the MVP when he played with the OKC Thunder. Also, Brooklyn has Mike D'Antoni, assistant coach under Coach Steve Nash. So you have the Rockets' former coach there. You have James Harden's former teammate there and Kevin Durant. It makes sense. And then that trio, I've called it like the three misunderstood musketeers, because these are three guys that sort of have a lot of thoughts on like, hey, I'm going to stay true to myself, play my game, but now maybe they realize they can sort of make this happen together. The question, though, is how are you going to get anything back, if you retain those 2 or 3 in Brooklyn? Like, that to me is the curious point, because I would assume you'd have to get a star back, whether that's Kyrie. We all know KD's probably the one that's the fixture there, just based on like no one's going to give up KD first. That's the question, to see like, all right, is there going to be a third team possibly in this equation? And that's what takes some time.
Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. And as you said, James Harden turns down the chance to be the first $50 million a year NBA player, $103 million extension over 2 years to get to that point. Chiney, that last part's interesting because all the indication we've got from Woj, from Zach Lowe, is that there's no plans for them to move Kyrie, that Kevin Durant very much wants Kyrie as a part of that equation, and they just want to add James Harden. And I wonder now, we've talked so much about depth and the way you build your roster, if what the Lakers did this last year influences anybody. Like, man, if your top couple are just that good, we'll piece together the rest, we'll figure it out, and we'll make it work, knowing that there's now a proven model for players of that caliber. And Kevin Durant, when he's healthy, is a player of that caliber to go out there and make it happen with a lot lesser hanging in the wings for you.
You have to be strategic in order to pull off what the Lakers pulled off. Again, in the first year of, them both playing a full season together, Anthony Davis and LeBron James, you have to really be strategic in the sense that what they were able to create was having a guy that could have been an MVP, a young MVP in Anthony Davis. At some point, he's likely to be in his career. And LeBron James, still the guy who can just throw kryptonite in any team's plans. They touch every aspect of the court. You can get three-point shooting by both of them. You can get defensive plays. LeBron James, most notably for his block in 2016, AD, potentially a defensive player there. You can get that. You can get ISO ball. You can get facilitation and offense. They touch every aspect, and that's why it worked. You'd have to sort of replicate that same model potentially with those three guys, or just make it rain from three, which literally that could be a better version of the Rockets game plan. And you've already got Mike D'Antoni there. So like KD scoring is going to be tough in isolation. Imagine at the top of the key, KD in the right corner where he likes to be. At the top of the key, James Harden doing his thing. And then the left corner, ready for like a dribble handoff is Kyrie. Like, that is almost unguardable too. I just wonder, like, are there liabilities there defensively on the other side? But I mean, at this point, we're in a league where it's like make or miss. Like, if you can outscore, you're good.
You know what? That's a great transition point here, Chiney, because you're right. That sounds like a wealth of offense. It's good problems to have in a lot of ways, because you assume that star players will work very hard, especially when this is their creation, when it's motivated by them to make it happen. What's the opposite of all that offense? Everything we saw on Monday Night Football last night. Coming up next, we'll tell you why there might not be any winners in Chicago at this point, and what the fix looks like for an offense that got broken this offseason. We'll get to that next. It's Chiney Golic Jr. after this word from DraftKings. Last week's in the book here on ESPN Radio. Mike Golic Jr., Chiney Golic. Coming up in about 10 minutes, we'll try and figure out what we saw on Monday Night Football last night, and if there is any fix in the Bears right now, because at this point that picture seems very, very broken, but could not be any less of the case where we're getting ready to head now as we welcome in New Orleans Saints linebacker Demario Davis with us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Pennzoil synthetic motor oils are made from natural gas. It gives you unbeatable engine protection. The proof is in the Pennzoil, based on sequence 4A wear testing using SAE 5W30. And Demario, we appreciate the time, man. First and foremost, just want to say how thrilled we were to hear the news about your daughter the other day. You made the announcement that she's cancer-free, and Chiney and I are not parents at this point, either one of us, but I can't imagine there's a greater feeling than getting the news that you and your family got.
Hey, first of all, I appreciate you guys for having me on. Yeah, it's a big deal, knowing that your child, has to go through something like that is very hard. And, just knowing there's so many parents out there that are kind of going through the same thing. You go through all different types of emotion. But just somewhere in there in the midst of us praying and lending them support that we had, we just realized how much of a blessing it was for our daughter to, have something that wasn't as life-threatening because it was just in her eye and it hadn't expanded. And then being around having a great eye team at Vanderbilt Eye Institute in Nashville, and the resources that we had around just to make sure she had the best treatment. So, she's in amazing condition now, man. She's an amazing child. Just excited to see, her future and how God is going to use her. And we just want to, be faithful as parents and make sure that we use the platform the right way because, retinoblastoma is just a very rare form of cancer, but a lot of kids are impacted, and parents most of the time don't know because there's not a lot of research on it. So, with us going through it, hopefully we have a platform that we can help, more people become aware about it. And if we can do that, then we're better for it.
Anyone who has seen or heard of your work is not surprised that you guys are turning this situation into something to benefit others in a lot of ways in here. Demario Davis with us, Saints All-Pro linebacker on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And the best news to start off of and certainly talk about the important things right away as now we transition to, just football at this point, which seems comparatively lesser in light of all this. But, Demario, I got to say for you guys, starting off this season, so much of this Saints team was really talked about relative to what Tampa Bay was doing with Tom Brady and those guys over there. But in recent weeks, you and that defense really seem to have found another level again. What's been different for you guys in the last few weeks as you really start to look like one of the top units in football?
Well, our coach is always just, pushing us about the process. Just focus on the process and the results, take care of themselves. And the entire season, that's all we have been focused on is our process and constantly fine-tuning that and finding ways to get better, whether it's the way we study our opponents, the way we critique ourselves, whether it's attention to detail and walkthroughs. Already being on a talented unit where you have three levels of a lot of veteran players and players that are proven to play at a high level, and a lot of young dynamic players, as well as being well coached. And I think just the past few weeks, or really the entire season, we've been getting better and better. But the past few weeks, we've just really been able to go out and put it on display. And I think if we continue to stay focused on the process, we still have room to grow.
Absolutely. Here with Demario Davis, New Orleans Saints linebacker, All-Pro, here on Chiney Golic Jr. And I'm so glad to talk to you again. This guy right here is my day one back from the Plug podcast, and we had a good time chatting back then. But sticking on the topic, obviously Drew Brees, we're talking about the start of the season. A lot of people had thoughts, but still he's at the top of the ratings when it comes to QBR. And now he goes down with injuries to his ribs and also his lung. Now Jameis Winston steps in and finds success. He held it down. What have you seen with Jameis that sort of makes you guys excited moving forward to be able to still carry this momentum forward?
First of all, what's happening? James, I felt like, he really was blessed to be able to come into the situation. I think nobody's handled it better than he has, for him to have whatever happened to him over in Tampa, to be able to come to a team with, one of the best offensive-minded coaches in football with Sean Payton, and then be able to play with, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. To play behind him and learn from him is really a good situation for him, and he's handled it the right way. He's been extremely humble. You got to think about a guy who was the number one player coming out of high school, Heisman Trophy quarterback, number one overall pick. That's the first time he's ever had to play backup. But, the guy comes with the right attitude every day, humble. He's asking guys all kind of questions about the way that they do their routines and whatnot. Incredible energy, still very vocal guy. You just see like all the makeup of a dynamic leader. And I think, with Drew going down, it's the next man up league. And I think he's just, he's been, sitting and waiting on this moment. And so I don't think nobody's going to be more anxious to step into this, more ready and anxious to step into this moment than he is.
Talking to Saints All-Pro linebacker Demario Davis with us here on Chiney and Golic Jr. And you mentioned the GOAT conversation. Certainly Drew Brees has a big-time claim to that with what he's accomplished with the Saints, but you also get to play against, again, another guy in that conversation in Tom Brady. And I'm curious, you came into this league with the New York Jets and spent a lot of time there. You saw him in that division. When you look at Tom Brady now and the two times you faced him this year, what differences do you see between the guy you faced back in the AFC East versus now in the NFC South?
Very, very little differences. The same guy, really. When you look at what he's been able to accomplish for so long, so much of that is about his drive, his process, his leadership ability. to be able to go to a team like Tampa that had a lot of pieces, but to be able to put them at that championship contending level just upon his presence just speaks so much about his game. But I mean, when you watch the tape, it's just not a lot of guys that can do what he does. You know, as far as he's seen every formation that you could throw at him, you're never gonna surprise him with a defense. You're never gonna surprise him with anything. And even in 1 year, it's a big transition for him to go from an offense that he's been familiar with to go to a new coach, to get everybody up to speed on the system and the plays that he likes. But he's handled it, like a goat would, and that's the reason why the team is playing at a high level.
I appreciate that you can talk so glowingly of him, especially knowing that you guys have now swept them in the regular season here. You've done what very few other teams can do, though, and beaten them soundly. I'm curious, for you guys, what do you feel like was the secret to being one of the teams to really go out and stifle that offense?
I mean, so much about what's happening with our team right now. I'm a high faith-filled man, and I just really feel like it's just a supernatural power of the man above that's just around our team right now. And even though we have a lot of great players and we're well coached and we put a lot of attention to our process, I just think you see a few things that probably are a little bit that don't really make a lot of sense. That you haven't really seen before, like a quarterback at that level getting swept by our team. You see, like myself being 31 years old, but playing better as I get older. I feel like personally we're gonna see the supernatural in how fast Drew recovers from this injury. So I just feel like there's a supernatural favor around our team, and it just continues to give us a platform to use it to praise where that praise should go.
Incredible stuff, Demario. We're looking forward to watching you guys the rest of the way this season. Congrats again on the great news about your daughter to you and your family, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, all love to Carly Faith.
I appreciate it, man. You guys are blessed.
Demario Davis, Saints All-Pro linebacker, with us here on Chiney Golic Jr. And certainly a lot to be excited about in New Orleans, a little less so in Chicago right now. How do we fix a problem that really started this summer? We'll get to that next. It's Chiney Golic Jr. on ESPN Radio.
Wednesday, it's the day of the NBA Draft. Will the wheelin' and dealin' make anybody a champion? Plus, we look ahead to the NFL weekend with contenders and pretenders. With me, Greeny, starting noon Eastern on ESPN Radio and streaming on ESPN+.
At Shell, we know from the time you get up to the time you wrap up,
good night,
there's a lot of meetups, eat-ups, and hurry-ups. So come to Shell and get 3 things done at once. Fill up with Shell V.
Nailed it!
Woo! Natural. I'm going to stay in my lane here. I really did sound good. Wow.
For everyone listening to this on the podcast later on ESPN+, it's Chiney Golic Jr. on ESPN Radio, presented by Progressive Insurance. And earlier, Chiney Golic, who is renowned for finding ways to weave song into the show, the Glee ESPN club around here that she has started. She is the founding member, and Chiney hit that note on End of the Road better than any song she has ever sang on air. And so I still, again, I'm running back props for this, Chiney. You earned it.
Thank you so much. It just took me, how long have we been? 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks, but it's all right.
Listen, we just talked to Demario Davis, Saints All-Pro linebacker, and he said it's about the process. And that is what's most important here, is you kept at the process. You kept getting a little bit better each and every week, and now we've arrived at this moment.
Thank you. Yes.
Come on, one more. I'm just saying. Woo!
Oh, this is a win today.
Oh.
Amen. Feeling like them Vikings, okay?
Oh, amen indeed. Now,
and Kirk. He defied the odds.
That is true. A very relieved Kirk Cousins after last night's Monday Night Football win. The Vikings get a 19-13 win over the Bears, Chiney. And I said this, there were really no winners in watching that game outside of Kirk Cousins, who, yes, now they keep it rolling. 3 straight wins in the division, like we set up yesterday. You mentioned Kirk was 0 on Monday Night Football, like you read to people. But, Lord, watching what they attempted to all call offensive football in that game was stressful. Chiney, and I don't know, like, again, this is the different dynamic between basketball and football because you're playing both ends of the court in basketball. You're going down there and you can influence the game on both ends. For the Chicago Bears offense, I don't know. It is, and Chiney, I played on a Notre Dame team back in 2012 that had maybe the best defense in college football that year, and we were a good, timely offense. Those are the nice euphemisms for we couldn't score in the red zone, and we ran the ball a lot more than we passed it. But there were some games where the defense was carrying the load, and there is no lonelier walk, or in my case, shuffle, over to the sideline than when you go 3 and out after your defense just forced a turnover, made big plays, got you the ball back, and you still couldn't do anything with it. It gets uncomfortable, Chiney, and I can only imagine what it was like at times on that Bears sideline.
Yeah, I'm actually curious. I want to know what it'd be like in that locker room because, you know, everyone has a job to do. You make the comparison to basketball, like we all have jobs to do, but like when that job is absolutely isolated and separated and it's exposed at a high level, like we saw with the Bears offense, I feel like it's I don't even know how you look someone in the eye. I'm just even curious, like when you held it down on the O-line, which Coach Brian Kelly said that's their hallmark at Notre Dame, and then maybe your defense messes up. Like, were you the type of player that would be like, can't even look at someone in the face? Because I feel like those emotions were on high in the matchup last night.
It tests the bond of your team, certainly, because if you've got a close team, you're trying to lift everyone up through that point in time. You're going over to the other side of the ball. We had, when our offense would struggle, defensive guys coming over there, the guys that we were cool with across the side of the ball, saying, hey, keep it up, because everyone knows that's tough. And we hear this in sports all the time. What does your coach always say?
Some days you're the dog, and some days you're the hydrant.
And everybody knows that, and it's especially true in the world of pro sports, Chiney. So you know at some point you're going to get got too, and you would like to think your teammates are going to be there, but over an extended amount of time. And that's what it's become for the Chicago Bears now, is an extended look at lesser than offense during the course of this season. Struggles at the quarterback position, where now Nick Foles out last night with what appears to be a hip pointer injury, I believe is what's being reported. He was carted off the field late in that game after taking a big hit. Mitchell Trubisky's banged up. We saw Tyler Bray in a game for them right now, Chiney. And these are problems for the Bears that started this offseason, when they went out and addressed the quarterback position by bringing in competition for Mitchell Trubisky in the form of Nick Foles, who outside of Philadelphia is really an unknown boomer bust type product. Instead of going after a realistic long-term solution, starting to maybe invest in that in a meaningful way, they chose this route to try and still see if they could salvage what I think should have been a sunk cost in Mitchell Trubisky. And now they're paying dearly for it, because now they've got no answers, and they're going into an offseason where major overhauls could be in the works. We don't know what happens with their coaching staff, and it just makes for even more uncomfortable conversations like that walking to and from the huddle.
I know this is absolutely a situation where it's like a beast of your own creation, because you look at the offense and you're like, oh, that stinks. 149 total yards on 50 plays. That's not cute. And you get 7 points. I think, what was it, on a kickoff return? And still you're not able to generate more. So this is a beast of their own creation. It's not one situation. It's a larger one.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Progressive's Home Quote Explorers, changing the way you buy home insurance. Now you can get a quote online.
That clipped. Please.
We are efforting that right now to try and make me sound even dumber than I already do. We'll give myself a chance at redemption coming up in about 10 minutes, though, because it's top 5, bottom 5 day around here at Chiney Golic Jr. We give you the best and the worst from the NFL weekend that was and get you caught up on all of that. We're excited for that, obviously. We are also excited to talk to our next guest, as we are joined now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line by FanDuel NBA analyst Rob Perez, with us here now. You know him on Twitter as Worldwide Wob. And Rob, I got to ask, are you at that point? Because obviously I feel like I've known you through Twitter like a lot of people. Do people just call you that in real life on the street at this point?
They do. You know, I get a lot of variations of it, but I'd start to say that Wob is probably the most popular at the moment. My mom calls me Robbie, if that means anything to you.
It's a fair point. My mom calls me Mikey, so I feel like moms are allowed to add that last little bit to it, make it special all their own. So either way, we appreciate the time, and we know it's a busy time right now. You mentioned last night, it is a bit of Russian roulette when it comes to the Woj bombs and the notifications that are sitting and waiting out there. So looking at what we got already, Drew Holiday going to the Bucks, I'm just going to ask it simply. Is it enough to keep Giannis?
I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to say yes because they don't make that trade and give up what they gave up. I mean, we're talking about a half a decade's worth of picks. Talking about Eric Bledsoe's contract, all of the future commitments for Drew Holiday. It wasn't LeBron James. It wasn't Kawhi Leonard, not Kevin Durant. It was just for Drew Holiday. You're not giving up that type of package, that Godfather package that David Griffin swung for Anthony Davis, that same type of deal for Drew Holiday. And you do that because you had the conversation with Giannis Antetokounmpo that they had privately after the bubble ended. How can we improve this team? How can we make you happy? And if Drew Holiday's name came up in that conversation, yes, of course, the Milwaukee Bucks were probably only bidding against themselves and maybe a little bit of the Denver Nuggets. But if they were going to go above and beyond, Drew Holiday is worth a lot more than just Drew Holiday if it keeps Giannis Antetokounmpo in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Drew Holiday, absolutely an underrated player in the NBA. Here with Rob Perez, FanDuel NBA analyst, also known on the social streets as Worldwide Wob. Thanks for joining us here on Chiney Golic Jr. Now, switching gears to my hometown, Houston, there's a lot of rumors swirling around James Harden potentially in Brooklyn. How do you see that working or not working?
I mean, how much time you got, Sinead? Like,
enough for you, my friend.
How much time you got? Because we're talking about on paper here, if we're assembling a video game team, an NBA 2K team with Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden on it, that team goes 82-0 and doesn't lose. But the last time I checked, there's only one ball on the court at once. So who exactly is getting the last shot in a one-point game down the stretch? Is it Kyrie, is it Harden, or is it Durant? Now, I understand these guys are all buddies, and they probably have a lot of business together as well. Hell, there's even rumors that they have been training together during the offseason. But they have completely different styles, and also when Harden and Durant were playing together in Oklahoma City, that's when James Harden was sixth man of the year. He was off ball cutting. He wasn't a ball dominant 35% usage guy. Is he willing to be that in Brooklyn? I don't know the answers to those questions, but I need to see it play out before I'm ever a believer.
It seems like a lot to try and stuff in one bag right there, but I just hearing all that, who takes the last shot in that instance, the first thing that flashed into my mind is somehow still Russell Westbrook. Somehow, even if he's not on the team, he is the one taking that last shot. That being said, Rob, are you excited to watch Russell Westbrook in Madison Square Garden?
Oh, man. Like, a lot of people listening to this know I'm a Knicks fan, so maybe I'm a little biased towards this, but the Knicks have finally cleansed themselves of all the bad contracts from the Allen Houston days, which made the NBA come out with an amnesty clause so that the Knicks couldn't do this to themselves. And now we've gotten to the point that the books are clean. You're building through the draft. You're kind of trusting your own process in a way. And I can't think of a quicker way to ruin that than bring on a guy who's making north of $45 million a year, well past his prime. Granted, he is Russell Westbrook. He's an MVP. The argument is that he will change the culture in the locker room. He'll get these guys committed to winning, and I totally am willing to hear that. But the Knicks are just not in a place where they're going to be relevant, let alone a championship contender, anytime soon. So why would you give up all of that cap space when you can go out and get one of those five guys potentially in the next couple of years, that their mere presence on your team guarantees you championship aspirations? Russell Westbrook is not that, and I don't trust him being a good enough locker room guy to make R.J. Barrett, Kevin Knox, and Mitchell Robinson into the Oklahoma City 2011 finals team.
Yeah, that's a lot coming from New York, and I get why you feel that way 100%. I'm starting to feel like that, considering my Rockets team seems like it's imploding. But I want to, go to something that's a little bit brighter, Rob, because this week, tomorrow, we have the NBA draft, and there's a lot of young talents that are going to have their lives changed. And most notably, LaMelo Ball is someone that I think a lot of people have high up in the draft. Are you excited, or what excites you most importantly about LaMelo Ball entering the fold as a Ball brother? Because, I stood next to him a couple years back. I was like, oh, I get it. This guy's like 6'6", 6'5", and able to be a point guard and can shoot. Where do you see that sort of working, considering that Minnesota has the first pick, and then we've got the Warriors who got lucky, the rich get richer at 2?
What's crazy is you mentioned he's 6'5". I think I saw somewhere he's now 6'7". I mean, is the kid just going to keep growing to 7 feet at this point? Because we're used to seeing him 14 years old in Lithuania, pointing to half court that he's going to pull up from 45 feet. That's the LaMelo Ball that went viral throughout the years, right? But now that he's growing into himself and becoming this full-man adult, and he's at the top of the draft here, who's going to take him? Now, the top 3 picks here, you've got Minnesota Timberwolves going first, the Warriors second, and the Hornets third. I'm a little weary if I'm a Minnesota Timberwolves executive and drafting LaMelo Ball for the same concept of Kyrie Irving, Harden, and Durant in Brooklyn. There's only one ball, and D'Angelo Russell needs a lot of it. Okay, I'm not even talking about Karl Anthony Towns yet. But if we're putting 2 point guards out there at once in LaMelo Ball and D'Angelo Russell with Cat's defense, that team is going to give up 150 points a night. They're going to be exciting as hell to watch. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't see a good fit there as opposed to someone like an Anthony Edwards. So for me, I'm going Edwards 1, Wiseman 2, and if you're the Charlotte Hornets and you can't buy relevancy in free agency and you are sick of being in 9th and 10th place in the Eastern Conference every year, mediocrity is the worst place to be in the NBA, why not draft it in LaMelo Ball? So if they miss out on LaMelo Ball, that's going to be a team whose name is probably going to come up a lot more for Russell Westbrook because of the affiliation with Michael Jordan and the Jordan brand sneaker as well. So I would look for them to go LaMelo Ball, maybe to save them from having to go out and get Russell Westbrook.
Rob Perez with us at Worldwide Wob on the Dr. Pepper Twitter feed, FanDuel NBA analyst on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Rob, before we let you go, Twitter unveiled the fleets today. Are you buying in on that at this point? What's your status on those?
What's the saying? If you can't beat them, join them. And I think Twitter is now the 4th social media platform to integrate stories. You know, we can't get an edit button, but we could get stories. So thank God for that, right? I haven't used it yet, nor have I seen anyone that I follow use it. So I'm still a newbie to all this. And if it's content that I want the world to see, wouldn't I just put it on my timeline? Why do I need to put it into a fleet? Is it just lesser content going there? These are the questions I think about.
These are the questions. I have one platform that I think could save them. They've got to buy Woj. Like, if they can get Woj to exclusively drop bombs on the fleets, I feel like they've got a chance. Other than that, I'm with you. I think at this point, just give us the edit button that we all want and let us go from there. Follow him on Twitter at Worldwide Wob. Check him out, FanDuel NBA analyst. Rob, we appreciate the time, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Rob Perez with us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And it's interesting, Chiney. The Hornets become an interesting one to talk about in this relative to the Russell Westbrook situation, but just him in general as a player, a lot to figure out and what to do there. A lot to also figure out and unpack from this weekend. Coming up next, a team I never imagined putting in my top 5 this season finds its way not just in, but here on ESPN Radio. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Mike Golic Jr., Chiney Golic. And it's Tuesday around these parts, which means we've digested a full NFL weekend now. We get ready to do a little top 5, bottom 5 here. I get to be the breath of fresh air, the glass half full guy that I usually am around here, and hit you with the top 5. Chiney's bottom 5 coming in a little bit after we talk to our very own Dan Orlovsky in about 10 minutes. So a lot of good football coming up, which is good because we need a palate cleanser at this point.
We do.
I have been struggling a little bit today.
Yeah.
I have not done the job of being a radio host very well on a couple of different fronts. And Chiney, I had to watch you almost pass out laughing when we were interviewing Rob Perez in that last second because of it.
Yo, so you said something that sounded like something else, and now you get the dump button, even though it wasn't a dump button. But yeah, that was comedy. Like, I did not think I was going to make it. So I was going to sing again, but I'm not going to sing.
So we're going to get back to Chiney singing because that'll be a lot better. But here is what happened in the last 2 segments for me. Now, Devin, I want to start with the read that happened here because before we get to me cursing on air, we've got all these reads that we have to do. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive's Home Insurance. Get your quote at Progressive.com today. We love Progressive. We love our sponsors. We do all this. I made the mistake of thinking that towards the end of last hour, when we've got the hard network out, you watch the Levitard Show guys rail Greg Cody with it all the time, that I needed to somehow squeeze this in. I did not have to do this, and yet the Busta Rhymes of ESPN Radio himself showed up to snap bars on this one. Devin, play the track. This is not sped up for anyone. This is not enhanced in any way. This is me in real time giving it to you. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Progressive's Home Quote Explorer is changing the way you buy home insurance. Now you can get a quote online, custom quote, save both time and money. Learn more at Progressive.com. I'm sorry. I am gifted.
At least we know when the pressure's on, you deliver.
It is unnecessary pressure completely. I did not have to do that, but I still did. Oh, no.
What else did you do?
What is going on? Cliff?
You don't think you actually read that fast, do you?
All right, listen. I wasn't going to let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Who sped that up?
No, you got me.
Which is
too.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Progressive's Home Quote Explorers, changing the way you buy home insurance. Now you can get a quote online, custom quote, save both time and money. Learn more at Progressive.com. Yeah, it
Let me hear the speed in there. Come on.
I was trying to let the audience run with the fact, why can't you guys just let me be great when I'm bad?
And if you're going to play him, don't play me too. At least let me in on the joke.
Hey, I was about to let you in, but then it was too late, and then you're 3,000 miles away, so it's a little bit difficult, and then, you know how that goes.
So here, they don't play me once. Now they play me twice because, again, we're talking to Rob Perez, FanDuel NBA analyst who just joined us on the show. And I had a little bit of a slip of the tongue right here. And so here it is, and hear them make it sound worse than it is with the beep button. Go ahead and play this, Devin. My mom calls me Mikey, so I feel like moms are allowed to add that last little bit to it.
My God.
All right. See, again, like you throw the beep button on there. I said ass, all right? And you throw the beep button in there. What, dump it?
Oh, snap.
So you tell me we don't have to beep it, and then you beep it and tell me that? I feel like I'm being...
my job, Junior.
I'm being set up to fail.
I wish that's what you said.
Unbelievable. Chiney Golic Jr. here on ESPN Radio for a little while longer at this rate.
At least put it in context. Like, well, never mind.
There's no context for that situation. I'm being set up. You know what? Now I see what it is. The plot is to set me up to fail from everyone around me right now. So I'm going to bail myself out right now by using imaging. Let's go to NFL Top 5 for the week.
Which teams were great?
Breaks a tackle at the 15, 10-5, touchdown.
What player was not?
Does he hang on? Intercepted. He couldn't hang on.
This is the NFL Top 5, Bottom 5.
I'm drunk off the fleets right now.
Let's go.
Too much power.
I love it.
Way too much power.
This is my favorite Junior. Give him hard outs every segment. Go.
What do we got? Number 5.
Number 5.
And even though you won't do anything nice for me, we got a lot of fans around this building, around this show, of the New York Football Giants checking in at number 5 right now. Not because I think they're a great football team, but because they're making a lot out of what they have right now. They get a 27-17 win over the Eagles, where Daniel Jones, they uncaged the lion, the gazelle on the ground, leads the team in rushing. Wayne Gallman out there with 2 touchdowns, a guy who I've been loving on coming out of Clemson since 2016, backing up Saquon Barkley. This team has found a way. Joe Judge has gotten buy-in there, which in year 1 during a pandemic is about all you can ask for, and they feel like they've gotten that much, Chiney.
And everyone was nervous as Daniel Jones ran, and he delivered. Finally, yay. Glad for him.
One of the
sigh of relief.
No longer sneaky athletic. Daniel Jones is full-blown. Number 4.
Number 4.
I'm putting Nick Chubb in the top 5 for making the smart football play on this one. He helped Chiney's fantasy team out by not getting those points off touchdown as the game is getting ready to go to a close. The opposing team's got no timeouts. Nick Chubb busts a 90-yard run and remembers at the 10-yard line, he was coached up to run out of bounds so they could kneel down and end the game with no funny business. And it costs bettors and it costs fantasy players, but Chiney, we reward smart football around here.
Absolutely. I'm glad he's back in the fantasy lineup because he's the one that gave me 18 points. Continue.
Number 3.
Number 3.
We talked about Monday Night Football and what an unmitigated offensive disaster that was. Number 3 goes out to the Bears defense. Showing up and shoring out. They scored a touchdown. Roquan Smith, 14 tackles, a sack, 3 tackles for loss. He's been playing monster ball lately. This defense has had to overcome a lot, and I just want to make sure that even if the win-loss column isn't showing them love as of late, we're still going to show you love here, Chiney.
You know what's funny? I'm actually thinking in my bottom 5 I should have put the other side of the spectrum. Food for thought. Still have time.
You still got time to workshop that. Do not worry. We are not done. Let's keep it moving.
Number 2.
Number 2 on the list. Memeing Bill Belichick. Because, yeah, the Patriots managed to get a win in a rain-soaked game against the Ravens. But what does that really matter unless you have positively impacted the world of memes the way Bill Belichick did this weekend, being lectured by an official, distraught with the news that he has heard in that process, and finds himself put into that picture, put into a meme. And I feel like, Chiney, Bill Belichick has given us a lot in his career, but meme-worthy moments is something that, as of late, he's been especially great at.
He's been 100% consistent on that. And that reminds me of the meme where it's like the guy with the sound like...
Oh, the headphones meme, yes.
The headphones, yep,
that meme. All plays very well for us in an audio medium right now as we try and verbally explain memes to everyone. Let's finish this off, Cliff.
Number 1.
No other place we can go with this. And shout out to the guys over at Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zuba, and I heard this term on their show, the Hail Murray!
Oh, Hail Murray.
Kyler Murray to DeAndre Hopkins for the catch heard round the world. A lot of free advertising for Nike in the process as that picture went viral. But Chiney, just an unbelievable effort from both of those guys. Kyler Murray dodging tacklers to get that ball off, and then DeAndre Hopkins goes up between 3 defenders and makes it work. Unbelievable. I'm sorry, I just saw Christine Lisi walk into the room, does our SportsCenter updates, the world's foremost Buffalo Bills fan, and now she's angry with me, and I feel terrible about this.
Yeah, you should feel bad about that. Possibly the best quarterback wide receiver duo in the NFL. I mean, I like Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers, but still up there.
Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, probably going to be the leader in the clubhouse for me, but I think these guys are probably third, right behind those two you just mentioned, and closing in fast at this rate. This is year 1 for these mutants. Good Lord. That is our NFL top 5 here on Chiney Golic Jr. We got the bottom 5 coming up in just a little bit. But coming up next, let's go inside the mind and inside that moment of a play like that Hail Murray with a guy who's lived it once or twice. We'll do that next after this word from Mercedes Radio. Mike Golic Jr., Chiney Golic, we're presented by Progressive Insurance, and our guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And that's where we head to now, because if we're going to talk NFL and we're going to talk quarterbacks, there's only one person I want to talk to. Chiney, I know you feel the same way. Dan Orlovsky, our ESPN NFL analyst, joins us now here. And Dan, I'm curious. We were just talking, and I saw you did a breakdown of this online about Kyler Murray's Hail Mary and what goes into that. Everyone's got a part on every play. So as an offensive lineman, I was just focused on, all right, I'm probably going to get a double team, make sure we give him time. What's it like breaking the huddle as a quarterback, knowing you're about to go and try and execute one of the most improbable plays in football?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is just like making sure the ball leaves your hand. You know, there's nothing more frustrating than like watching television, a Hail Mary situation, and these quarterbacks just like take a sack. So I don't care what it looks like, just the thought process is get the ball out of your hands somehow, some way. And then, you know, I was never good at this, but like just trying to be as creative as possible. You know, a lot of times you have to climb above the X's and O's, which is what Kyler did, and scramble around and create some time to allow those receivers or whoever to go downfield and get to, I guess, a jump position. But you know, the fascinating part, Mike, with the Kyler one was like it wasn't a Hail Mary. It became a Hail Mary because Hop and Kyler, but it wasn't. And that was, you know, kind of one of those moments where you're like, man, that's why you took that kid number 1, because coach called the play and designed a play, and it probably wasn't going to be a great one, but here they are celebrating because of the talent that those two had.
Dan Orlovsky here with us on Chiney Golic Jr., our own ESPN NFL analyst and also co-host of NFL Live. Now, Dan, what did you see? You're sort of like, you have X-ray vision when it comes to breaking down plays of that magnitude. What did you see and how they were able to just really get it done in that moment?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like that because I ran a 6'2" 40 as a sophomore in high school. So, like, it was real obvious physically I wasn't going to be something. So mentally I better learn football pretty good. You know, Chiney, like, this is what happened because, you know, the 2 plays before that, they got into the same formation, and Kyler kind of ran around and threw a 5-yard completion to Fitz. The very next play, they got the same exact formation, trips receivers to one side, and then Hop on the other side, and Buffalo was actually showing all-out pressure. Everyone was going to blitz, and they were going to play man coverage. Buffalo called timeout. And so Kyler goes to the sideline, conversations happen, and, you know, Cliff actually said, like, there was a little bit of a designed sprint out to his left. Like, they try to bait the defense in. They pull one of the guards to kind of seal off the inside so Kyler can run around the outside and create some space. And they were trying to hit Larry Fitzgerald on, like, a 20-yard crossing field pattern to get, like, another 20 yards to get certainly closer for a real Hail Mary. And what happens is Kyler, like, breaks the pocket. The defense wins the play because the guard can't make the block, and then Kyler makes that guy miss. And then all of a sudden, Hop just, like, drifts towards the end zone. He's the only guy in the end zone. I mean, there's no other person in the end zone. He just throws up the Randy Moss hand, right? Like the, hey, I'm 2-on-1, just throw it up. And Kyler, just being a freak athlete, launches it into the perfect place. And then, like, I wish people can understand how difficult the throw is, but then, like, how difficult just timing the jump is. Like, you're timing your jump. You're fighting for space. You got to rise up with 3 other people around you to make that catch. Like, it was like one of those moments where you go, like, man, there's only a handful of people on the planet that can do stuff like that. And that's how they made it happen. It was just those guys being so significantly superior athletically.
Dan Orlovsky with us here on Chiney and Golic Jr., Mike Golic Jr. and Chiney Golic on ESPN Radio. And Dan, from that offensive production and firepower to whatever we saw last night on Monday Night Football was a difficult transition, man. Dan, I'm genuinely at a loss at this point. For the Chicago Bears, offensively, there is a lot wrong right now. As they go and start to look, I mean, it doesn't seem like something you can fix now. What do they need to start with doing to try and get this ship righted at some point going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say this. Like, first of all, if we're just going to go to the field offensively, right, they got a championship defense. You know this, Mike. Like, when you have a really good offensive line, everybody around that offensive line, their strengths are accentuated, right? Everyone's better because of that offensive line. When you have a bad offensive line, all the weaknesses are magnified. And so the weaknesses of the quarterback, the receivers, all getting magnified because the Bears' offensive line is poor. Then you attach it to a scheme that is poor. They got a poor scheme. They got no identity. They don't know what they're doing. They bring the receivers in these condensed splits, and that just makes it harder on everybody. And then you've got a coach that doesn't really know how to call plays on a good rhythm. So, like, you've got to blow it all up. I mean, that is unquestionably what has to happen. They're going to have to blow it all up. And, for Ryan Pace, their general manager, Mike, it's weird because you go, okay, you put a lot of the pieces of that defense together, right? Like, you did a good job building that defense, but our offense is a joke. So do you believe in the general manager that he can fix the offense? They got to get a new head coach. Matt Nagy's not cutting it as a head coach. And then I think this is a fair question to ask. Like, is Mitchell Trubisky a lot better than what the Bears kind of presented him to be? They were better with Mitchell Trubisky. 2 years ago, they're a 2 seed in the playoffs with Mitchell Trubisky. Last year, they didn't use him the right way and still were trending or fighting for a playoff spot. And then this year, they were 3-0 or 2.5-0 with Mitchell Trubisky. And so, like, now the question for me is, like, is Trubisky a lot better, or certainly better than what Chicago kind of allowed him to be? And that becomes a completely different, door that they might have to cross or climb through with this offseason, because I don't think that I consider and say they're a playoff team anymore with that offense.
Sounds like a trap door, Dan. And we don't have much time, but I wanted to hit you with this question. I wanted to hit you with this question before we leave. Speaking of a different transition, though, Drew Brees dealing with an injury, and in comes Jameis Winston. And we just had Demario Davis on, who said that Jameis could really provide the energy that their team needs to keep moving forward. What are your thoughts on Jameis stepping in?
I mean, this is exactly why Jameis, if you go back to why when he chose New Orleans, it was he took less money for the opportunity to go learn there. Well, here you go. Like, this is in the NFL, you don't get these opportunities. Like, this doesn't fall to you like this, especially at the quarterback spot. So this is the opportunity he went there for. All he has to do, Chiney, is this. Don't be the reason they lose. Don't be the reason they lose. Like, Teddy Bridgewater last year was good. He just wasn't the reason they lost. And then they end up going 5-0 because they're a good team that's well coached and they got good players. Don't be the reason they lose. If he just goes in there with that mindset, they'll win some games. They'll certainly continue to sprinkle probably a little bit more of Taysom Hill. But if Jameis does that, you're looking at the number one free agent at the quarterback position next year because of it. And it's a great opportunity for him.
We're excited to watch it, no doubt. We hope Drew Brees has a speedy recovery. But in the meantime, you're right, a major opportunity. Always a pleasure, Dan. You can check him out on NFL Live every day at 4 Eastern. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Thanks, Dan.
Dan Orlovsky, our ESPN NFL analyst, with us here on Chiney and Golic Jr. All the breakdowns you need, Dan has got that on lock. Check him out at Dan Orlovsky7 on Twitter for that. But we go from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. Coming up next, Chiney is going to walk us through the bottom 5 from the NFL weekend that was. That's next here on Chiney and Golic Jr.
Wednesday, it's the day of the NBA Draft. Will the wheelin' and dealin' make anybody a champion? Plus, we look ahead to the NFL weekend with contenders and pretenders. With me, Greeny, starting noon Eastern on ESPN Radio and streaming on ESPN+.
Making Moves is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs.
After falling to the Los Angeles Lakers in the 1982 NBA Finals, the 76ers needed to find the right player to build the ultimate winning team.
It's happening. I'm going to speak it into existence because, as you know, I'm a chaos agent, and I need this in the NBA. I don't care how they get it done. I don't care what it takes. We need to get him to Brooklyn. We need to find a way, Chiney.
Look, I'm cool as long as we get something back, not just, do something haphazardly. So I'm okay, but then again, when it happens, I'm going to go
We'll just give you all of the non-Kyrie and Kevin Durant nets, and we'll call it a day, and everyone will be good to go. We're presented by Progressive Insurance, and now it's time to get to the important business at hand here. It is top 5, bottom 5 in the NFL on a Tuesday, every Tuesday here at Chiney Golic Jr. I, being the ray of sunshine, gave you the top 5 before. Chiney is going to try and give you the bottom 5 here and now.
Which teams were great?
Breaks the tackle at the 15, 10-5, touchdown!
What player was not?
Does he hang on? Intercepted! He couldn't hang on!
This is the NFL Top 5, Bottom 5.
Started at the bottom, still at the bottom. That's the remix, okay? So how about this? Let's start with number 5.
Number 5.
Will the real MVP please stand up? Please stand up in the NFL, because it's been a rough week for those guys. Let's talk about Lamar Jackson, just because, you know, we gave it to the rain, but still you're losing, and also losing much needed ground in your division, especially with the Steelers looking pretty good, still undefeated. And also Russell Wilson, a guy that we've said, you know, Lamar being the reigning MVP, and we sort of dubbed the first quarter of the season MVP in Russell Wilson. He's also in a position where he's not looking good in his division, and he's now tied with Arizona and Los Angeles, and he's committing way too many turnovers. I said since week 6 in the bye, or week 6 action, he's had almost as many turnovers as touchdowns. So these guys in the MVP conversation have really sort of taken a step back, but there's still much season left, but these MVPs unfortunately are in the bottom.
It's so true, though, Chiney, especially about Russ. I mean, the first half of the season, we looked at his body of work and said we made all the jokes about him not getting an MVP vote before, but it really since has been a difficult go for a team that has very little defense to rely on.
Number 4, please.
Number 4.
All right, this one's funny, and it's kind of Philly, okay? Talking about practice, not the game. I'm talking actually about practice, because I'm going to say the coaches take another L, and I love to see this, because I love to see when there's someone out there that sort of defies the practice odds. All right, and this week it's Big Ben Roethlisberger, because after not practicing due to the Bengals, what did he do? He went out there, 27 for 46, 333 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. So for those who say you need to practice to prepare, we do, but not really though. Not really though.
Preseason might have died this year for everyone in the NFL. And sure as hell, Ben Roethlisberger's taking a long, cold, hard stare at practice and going, what?
I'm telling you, for sure. Next.
Number 3.
You know, music is in my blood. Music is in my blood. And I sort of came up with this dub being Young Lock, sort of like Young Jock, because he loves Jeezy. You get what I'm saying?
Okay. All right, I'll give that one to you.
And the Denver Broncos right now, I think they're really struggling, but it starts at the quarterback position, because they lose to the Raiders. And what does he do? He throws 4 interceptions. This is the same division where you have Patrick Mahomes. You also have Justin Herbert. You also have Derek Carr, who's trending upward. And so in a situation where there was a lot of energy going into this year, I know they're dealing with a lot on the injury front. He only has 7 passing touchdowns compared to 9 interceptions, and he has one of the worst passer ratings. So it's been a rough go for Drew Lock, even though he's Young Lock still in my book.
He's still Young Lock, and we still respect that. Swaggy sideline dance moves are welcome around these parts. But, Chiney, this was the team that I know a lot of us talked about the Arizona Cardinals as a dark horse team. Kyler Murray certainly further along in his journey. But people were excited about the offensive weapons they'd amassed in Denver. We knew defense was probably going to be pretty stable, especially with Vic Fangio at the helm. But it has been a tough go of it right now, and I'm sure they're going to give him more time to develop. But, man, John Elway has got to be nervous at this point in time, knowing what's at stake for him.
Super nervous. And anytime I played in the Pac-12, especially in that vicinity, I'd be like, it's the altitude. Y'all, it's the altitude, okay? But maybe it's the attitude. We got to shift it more to positivity. Number 2, please.
Number 2.
Okay. I'm glad we sort of punted on this with Dan Orlovsky, because I don't want to kick someone when they're down. Carson Wentz. Another rough week for Carson Wentz, because it's not just losing. It's who you lose to, losing to the Giants. You have also Doug Peterson, coach wilding out, the media wilding out. And in the game versus the Giants, the Eagles were 0 for 9 on 3rd downs. It was the first time since 2004 that the Eagles did not convert a 3rd down again versus the Giants. I don't know how you feel good about that.
Yeah, no, there's nothing to feel good about right now, and I'm glad we let Dan Orlovsky off his daily duty of giving the State of the Union when it comes to Carson Wentz, but it's just been a struggle all the way around right now for a team that it seems like eons ago was winning the Super Bowl and near the top of that division, and hell, even this year we expected to be at the top of the division right along with Dallas. So I'm with you, and I don't know what the easy fix looks like, Chiney, is hopefully they start to get healthier and maybe at some point this gels together. It is the NFC, so they're going to have every shot in the world.
The NFC least. And last but not least, this one, Junior, it really actually hurts my heart to do this. It really does.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I am so sorry, Christine. I am so sorry. I put you in the end zone, but I didn't mean like this. I didn't mean on the other end of the spectrum.
Oh, no.
Number one worst things in the NFL this week, the 3+ defenders around Nukes, DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, this was an amazing Hail Murray, as we've called it, but it hurt in the worst way for the Bills because you go from a situation where you're potentially 8-2 to now 7-3, and I believe half game behind. Miami's half a game behind now with all the momentum, all on one play. So I'm sorry, Christine, but so far I think that was the worst thing. If you're a Bills fan, losing that way and also losing a lot of wiggle room in your division as well.
I'm very afraid to look to my left where Christine Lisi is sitting right now. I just imagine she is going to be coming into this room with a chair at some point to end me for what has now been 2 times where we have unfortunately brought up the moment not to be spoken of ever again after this on this show out of respect for Christine Lisi.
Yeah, big respect. I put in the end zone, but it was not like this. Again, rough week for the MVPs, Lamar and Russ, and then we've talked about practice for the win or the loss, however you call it. Drew Lock, then Carson Wentz, and then, of course, the Bills, unfortunately. More like a dollar bill or something.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, my God.
Sorry.
Why are you just like, it's like you've been saving this all up right now. Oh, my God.
Look what you're rubbing off on me.
Let the record show. Those are not my words. I do not endorse Bills slander around here. Proud friend of Bills Mafia and trying to keep it that way.
Fair.
We're trying to see if Houston can keep anything the same at this point, as it seems like their foundation is